All right, good evening, good evening, good evening. We are live. I want to thank you for tuning in this evening. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I am the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And this evening, we're talking about a story that comes out of Florida. And when you hear what this story is already about, it's not going to be any surprise that it comes out of Florida. It seems like the craziest stories come out of the great state of Florida. But this story is basically a father. So a father ends up shooting his daughter's abusive ex and ends up killing him. So it's definitely a bizarre set of facts. And, we're going to talk about it, get into some of the legal analysis. I'll give you my thoughts on this case. But before I get into that, I just want to say, Kersey Law, we are currently looking for talent. So the team at Kersey Law is growing. I am very proud of the team. We've been doing an amazing job this year. And actually, we just got a 5-star review that I'm so very proud of, because in the review, the guy specifically mentions team members by name, right? So he mentions my associate attorney, Michelle Boss. He mentions our intake specialist, Nathan Johnson. And, that's just a really special thing, when, at least for me, I sought out to develop my skills and be the best lawyer I could be. And, quite frankly, I just wanted to kick ass. I really wanted to get phenomenal results, and I continued to build up my skill set, putting in long hours, doing everything that I could to be the best that I could. And then when it came to building a team, which we're doing, and starting to see how people are commenting on my teammates' performance, and it actually makes me more happy and more proud that our clients are naming our teammates in our reviews more so than just naming me. I just think that's really cool, and so we are expanding. I just made an offer this week to a new paralegal, so I'm really excited about her getting started. But we're expanding, and you don't necessarily have to be in the state of California now with remote working and everything. Really, we can accept talent from across the nation. So if you know somebody who is passionate and they would have something to deliver to the table, we're only looking for A players. If you're B through C, D, definitely you might want to go somewhere else. But if you got top level talent and you want to be a part of a team that is really doing amazing things, we are delivering phenomenal results, then find a way to get at me. Send us over your resume, send over a cover letter. We might be able to work together. You could be a part of the Kersey Law team too. So with that said, let's get into this story. And I want to start by with a preface, talking about the relationship of a between a father and a daughter. And I remember, as I was thinking about this story and shocked by the headlines again, a father ends up shooting his daughter's abusive ex-boyfriend and he ends up dying. I remembered going to a friend's older brother's house. And I have this memory where I don't know if if you watch football and you're familiar with Peyton Manning, and sometimes he talks about plays where he can recall the details. He remembers it was at Tennessee, and we were on the road, and I remember it was the third quarter, and it was third down with 5 to go, and I called this play and it worked out. That's a crazy memory that he has. But when it comes to my cases, I oftentimes will have memories of motions that I file and different things that we ended up doing. Hey, that's my auntie. What's up, auntie? How you doing? Love you, love you. Thanks so much for coming through and showing me some support. Shout out to family. It's very special to have family coming through and supporting. I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, we're talking about the relationship between fathers and daughters. And I remember I was only in my 20s. I was in my 20s and I had this distinct memory, and it's always stuck with me, right? I was going to this guy's house. I don't remember why I went to the house, but I remember being there. And at some point, you know, this guy's daughter, and she was young, she was definitely walking around. She might have been maybe 3 years old or so. So she's running around playing with her toys and everything. And at some point she runs towards her dad and jumps into his arms. And then he's laying on the couch and he picks her up and he's looking into her eyes and she's looking into his eyes. And I just remember thinking that it was just such a beautiful moment. I was just thinking to myself, in my 20s, I was nowhere near the point where where becoming a father was any time coming coming true, right? So I was as far away as you could be from wanting to be a father at that point, but I acknowledged in the moment how special it was, the way that daughter looked at her daddy and the way the dad looked at his daughter. And, good fathers, amazing fathers. Yes, you did. Yes, you did have the best dad ever. I'm sure you do remember those tender moments, Auntie. And I remember tender moments with my grandfather as well. He was a special man. Um, Good fathers love their daughters. They protect their daughters. They provide a sense of security, strength, inspiration, and as kids grow up, they become more and more independent, right? And eventually they grow up, right? Eventually they grow up, and there's that rush, right? And if there's one thing that I could say to kids is don't be so in a rush to grow up, right? When you're a kid, when you're approaching your teens, you can't wait to be grown and out of the house, and then life hits you, right? Why in a rush to go out and pay bills, right? When you got to go out and pay rent and bills. But kids they want to grow up fast. But my point is, once those daughters become adults, they'll eventually be grown and they'll move out of the house. But one thing I've heard from fathers over the years is that their daughters will forever be daddy's little girl in their eyes, right? And so in this situation, we found out there was a Mr. F around and find out, right? You heard that saying before, F around and find out. I'm not going to curse on here, but we found out in this story, if F around and find out was a person. Is that Tyvar? I don't want to mess up your name, Tyvar Nicholson. Can I give you a contact number to reach out to my law firm? Just Google Kersey Law. You'll see the number there. Google Kersey Law. I appreciate you reaching out, though. So we have Mr. F around and find out, right? And this happened last week out of Florida. And on March 17th, this is the date when this happened, a guy ends up going to his ex-girlfriend's apartment, right? And there's not a whole lot of details about this story, but we know that there was a guy and a girl who had previously been in a relationship, and he makes his way to the apartment and ends up inside the apartment, right? And so the way that the articles and the news stories are worded, it's a little vague, but it's probably safe to say, based on what ended up happening afterwards, that that he wasn't invited, right? This was not someone who was an invited guest to come over to the ex's house. But he ends up and he may have, they say that he got inside the apartment, not that he was let inside the apartment. So it may have been, it may not necessarily have been a break-in, but he may have entered the apartment uninvited. But he does, one thing that is clear is that he ends up assaulting the ex-girlfriend, right? So on some level, and again, there's no details as to whether he slapped her, kicked her, punched her, hit her with some sort of object, but he has on some level assaulted the ex-girlfriend. And at Kersey Law, we handle a lot of domestic violence cases, right? So we definitely have, we have an active murder case, we have an attempted murder case, we have all kinds of other types of cases, drug possession case, drug sales, but the vast majority of our cases are domestic violence cases. And the way the police end up getting involved in these cases is either the alleged victim themselves, right? The situation escalates, there's an argument. Argument's going to happen. It can be, over finances. It can be over, obviously if your ex is at this point, that's not usually going to be the case. But, if someone's if a couple is currently in a relationship or a marriage, be arguments over finances, it could be arguments over allegations of cheating, or looking at someone the wrong way. But either way, there's going to be some sort of argument that leads to violence, right? And just as the disclaimer, violence is never okay in a relationship, right? You got to be able to use your words, you got to be able to deal with hot and hostile situations, be able to walk away, right? So, violence, whether it's guy to girl, girl to guy, is never okay, right? But there's going to be commotion going on. You're going to have, yelling and screaming, and things are getting thrown around. And so either the alleged victim is going to call the police, or a neighbor is going to overhear what's going on and call the police. And if you're rocking with me right now, if you could just do me a favor and hit the like button, I would definitely appreciate that. It helps the algorithm, helps our channel. But the police are eventually going to get called, and that's what happened in this situation, right? So the police eventually get called, and oftentimes that's going to scare away the guy. And I say the guy because 8 to 9 times out of 10, when we're talking about these domestic violence cases, the aggressor is the male. Are there sometimes situations in which we have a female aggressor? Yes, absolutely. I have represented plenty of women who were arrested for assaulting their boyfriends or their husbands. So it definitely goes both ways, or even, same-sex couples, a male on a male, a female on a female. So all these are possible scenarios. But when we talk about the vast majority of these cases, it is a male on a female situation, right? And so, when the police get called, this guy decides to leave. I'm not just going to wait around and let the police take me into custody, right? Because if he assaulted his girlfriend, not only that, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's the ex-boyfriend. It seems that he has no business being at his ex-girlfriend's apartment, number one. Number two, he's inside, and it sounds like he wasn't invited. And number three, he's now assaulted this woman at this point. So definitely, if the police show up and they see her, she's going to report, even if she doesn't necessarily have any visible injuries, she's going to say, hey, my ex-boyfriend came to my house. I didn't want him here. He was inside. He attacked me. He needs to be arrested, right? And so this guy, in order to avoid being arrested, he ends up leaving. So the girlfriend did not just call the police. She called the first protector she ever knew. She called her dad, right? And so, again, the boyfriend ends up leaving the house before the police arrive, before her dad arrives, right? Because, again, he's not trying to get arrested. And so when the police do respond, and again, there's not a lot of details in the news articles that have been published about what the extent of her injuries were. But we can go off of what happens just generally. The police are going to, respond because, they'll be driving around in the streets and get the radio call. Hey, there's a domestic violence situation going on. And then they'll go to the house to do their investigation. They're going to do their domestic violence investigation. And, they're going to say, hey, we're responding to a call about a domestic violence situation. Are you okay? What's going on? and they're going to take her statement. They're going to find out exactly what went on. She's going to say, "Hey, my ex-boyfriend came through. He's crazy. He's always, because I guarantee you this was not just a one-off situation, right? This was not, whether it was the assault or him just showing up unannounced. This probably was not the first time this went down." Right. And so she's going to have reported what went on. So she's going to give the whole narrative on him coming through, what was said back and forth, and how that escalated from a conversation to violence. And this is also being recorded on their body worn cameras. Right. So officers, pretty much they all these days, they're going to have a body worn camera that's taking down everything that's being said. And if she has visible injuries, they're going to take pictures of her. So if she has any cuts, bruises, anything like that, they're going to take pictures. They're also going to take pictures of the apartment, right? So a lot of times when you have a violent situation, there's going to be things thrown around, tossed about. You might have, dishes thrown around. You might have, if there was liquid in a glass, there might be Coke all over the floor, plate of food, whatever. The police are going to take pictures of any evidence of there having been an altercation or a tussle going on in this house. And that'll also be captured on their body worn camera video, right? And so, depending on the situation, they may go around and ask neighbors if they heard anything out of the ordinary either, right? Because a lot of times they have heard something. Oh yeah, we heard screaming. We heard a guy screaming, and he was yelling obscenities, and we heard the girl screaming back, and then we heard what sounded like a plate being broken. They're going to describe what they ended up hearing, and so the police are going to take that down as well. And one of the reasons why they get information from neighbors or from third parties is because it is a big situation and I'm sure this wasn't going to happen in this situation, but there are situations where you have a couple that's still together, and the female, who is the alleged victim, then goes back on what she originally reported to the police. She may say, "Oh, this never happened," or "He never hit me." This never happened, which then makes it difficult for the police and for the DA to build their case. So the more objective evidence they can come up with, if you have an objective third party, a neighbor who has no dog in the fight, but is reporting, "Hey, I heard this happen," or, "I heard her scream, 'You're choking me,' or 'Stop choking me," right? It's going to be difficult for her to then go back and say, "Oh, I never said these things," when they say, "Hey, well, we spoke to Mr. Anderson next door, and he said he heard you say that." Right? So they're going to do everything that they can to ultimately build their case in terms of their investigation. But in this situation, the police, they do what they do, and they end up leaving. About 30 minutes later, ex-boyfriend comes back, right? So he had left, gone away, and ex-boyfriend comes back. We got a comment here. "Thank you so much. One more question. If the price is right, would you represent someone in Pennsylvania? I understand that the laws are different because of the Commonwealth." Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't have anything to do with the price, but it has something to do with the fact that I'm only licensed in the state of California. So I definitely appreciate the fact that you would consider me and my firm, to represent somebody. But yeah, we wouldn't be able to represent anyone outside of the state of California. So you should definitely run a Google search or ask around for the best representation you can find in your home state. I hope everything works out well with that case. So 30 minutes later, boyfriend comes back, right? And I guess he's thinking, "Hey, the cops should be gone by now," or maybe he saw the cop cars, were gone. He might have left, kept in within eyesight, to where he could see what was going on, see that the cops show up and the cops leave, and then, he's coming back. But what he doesn't know, apparently, is that Mr. F around and find out is there now. But he doesn't know that. So he tries to force his entry into the apartment, right? So not only has he showed up the first time, and again, it sounds like he was not invited. This is an ex-boyfriend, so they're no longer in a relationship. He shows up, makes his way into the house, assaults this girl, leaves to get away from the police, and then comes back a second time and forces his way into this apartment. And how upsetting does this have to be for this woman? And I don't know her age. They didn't, provide any age. But yeah, so I can't even necessarily assume it was a young woman, but with dad involved and these type of things happening, I'd like to think that she's probably a younger woman. But either way, no matter how young or old she is, how upsetting does this have to be? We are no longer in a relationship anymore. You have no business coming to my house, let alone, and it's not just coming into my house, but breaking in, forcing your way into my house, right? So this has to be insanely frustrating and probably scary for this daughter who has just been physically assaulted by this man, and now he's coming back for more. But daddy's here this time around. And you can only imagine how angry he was at this situation. Because if he's coming to the house with his pistol, so he had a handgun on him, you can only imagine how many times he's heard the stories of them getting into it, right? Of him putting his hands on this guy's daughter. And he makes it into the house, and the dad is ready. The dad is ready for whatever's coming. He had a handgun, and he pulls out that handgun and shoots the man in the chest. So apparently he's a good shot, right? Got him right in the chest. That guy left. So it doesn't exactly say what if anything was said, because if these guys were smart and they had to give a statement to the police, ideally they would have remained silent, right? Exercise your right to remain silent. But the guy left. He left the house, and the police reported that he was found dead next to his car. So I imagine he probably wanted to go to the hospital, get some medical attention, try to get to his car, and he was found dead right there. Now, for me myself, I do not wish any harm on anybody. I never have and never will. But this is foolish behavior. This is insanely foolish behavior. And this man's foolish behavior got him killed. And I think this is, this definitely leads to a piece of advice for the fellas, that when the relationship is over, it is over, right? When the relationship is over, it's over. Don't be showing up to a girl's house uninvited, unannounced, and definitely don't break into your ex-girlfriend's house or your ex-wife's house. That's just not okay. And for those of you who might laugh and say, man, well, who would do that? Well, it happened in this case, right? But on top of that, I've seen it time and time and time again. I've represented men who simply could not let go. They couldn't accept the fact that they had been dumped. They couldn't accept the fact that they might have been cheated on, or they just couldn't let the situation go in general, and they react violently. I've represented a lot of men who acted violently against their ex-girlfriends because they just couldn't let the situation go. And it can be very scary out there for women in this situation, right? But, let me not just pile on the men, because, there's women out there too, right? I've heard the other side too. Women who can't just let a man go on with their life, right? Showing up at your ex-boyfriend's house, showing up at your ex-husband's house or places where he be at, right? Guys playing pickup basketball, 24-hour fitness, right? He's just trying to get his workout in, get some runs up and down the court, and ex-girlfriend rolls up to the gym like, what's up? Right? And it's like, yo, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? This is not okay. Right? So it's really important, right, that we be able to manage our emotions, right? When something's over, it's time to let it go. But truth be told, so there's some out there that like that drama, right? We all know somebody, right? They like the girl showing up drunk at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, right? After you told her that you never want to see her again. We all know somebody who likes that drama, craves that drama, just toxicity all around. But these are things that sometimes people laugh at, but the reality is these are the bases of what lead to these type of violent incidents. This is real. Right? So not being able to let go, not being able to accept that a relationship is over, and just showing up unannounced to someone's house, that's a problem. And definitely breaking into that house and assaulting, whether it's the male or the female. That's not okay. And so again, no other information has been released. That's about it. That's all I was able to see at this point. We don't know the names, the ages, the race of the parties, any of that information. But it does leads to a question of, should this father be arrested, right? Should this father be arrested, and should he be charged with a crime? And it is a very hot button issue, because I can tell you there are some people out there who are celebrating this man as a hero. I saw in some comments that someone said that Biden should give him a Medal of Honor, right? Biden should give him a medal of honor. And then you have people who are like, what gives you the right to just take someone's life? Hey, New Mexican in the house. What's up, BJ? Appreciate you coming through. I imagine folks in New Mexico would definitely be celebrating this father who took matters into his own hands, did what the police couldn't do in this situation. Right? But that's a question. Let me see. Let's get some interaction in this situation. Should the father, in your opinion, we're going to talk about it, get into some analysis, but should the father be arrested in this situation? Right? So his daughter's ex-boyfriend rolls up to the house, probably unannounced, probably uninvited. He makes his way into the house, assaults the daughter. She calls the police. She calls daddy. He runs away. He comes back, breaks into the house. Dad is there, armed with a pistol, and shoots him in the chest. And he dies from the gunshot wound. Should he be arrested? Should he be charged with a crime? All right. And again, I think this it's going to depend. There's some facts that we don't know in this situation. So it will depend, and it could realistically go either way. There's a few different scenarios that could happen. Saw a few people just joined. Thanks so much for coming through. We're talking about this story out of Florida in which a father shot and killed a guy who was abusing his daughter. So his daughter's ex-boyfriend. And so again, this could go either way, right? So here are the different scenarios. Dean Price, what's up, man? I know. No, I'm not gonna put the name out there, but this is a good man with a daughter. I could tell you this: test his daughter, and you'll see another F around and find out. I'll tell you that. Thank you for your service, my brother. Appreciate you. Love you, bro. But this is gonna depend, and it can go either way. So what are the different things that could happen to this guy at this point? He could be arrested, right? If you shoot somebody, the police could definitely find probable cause. If you shoot somebody and they die, the police could definitely find at least probable cause to arrest you, right? So they're going to they're going to do whatever investigation that they do. And if they arrest the guy, they're going to take their file and send it over to the DA's office. DA is going to review it, and they're going to determine, hey, was there a crime committed? And was there a crime committed that we believe that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt? And if they think they do, then they'll charge him, right? That's one scenario. Another scenario is that they could arrest him, give their file to the DA. DA looks it over. All right, can we prove something beyond a reasonable doubt? And they could say, you know what, I don't think we can prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Looks like, he might have been acting in self-defense or the like, and decide to not file charges, right? So he could get arrested. The DA reviews the case and declines to file charges. Yeah, BJ, this case is out of Florida. Right? The other possibility is that the police could decide they can do their own internal review without even getting to the DA, and they can say, hey, we're not even going to arrest this guy. That's a possibility too, right? So the father, we know, shot and killed this guy, and the police can make the decision that we're not even going to arrest this guy because we don't believe that a crime was committed. Felicia says, no, he shouldn't. He should not be arrested. He should not be charged with a crime. We're going to look at, why that would be the case if that is the end result, right? Because it doesn't sound like he's been arrested yet. There's a possibility that he won't be arrested. And if that's the case, it's going to be because of this. So we know that if you shoot somebody, right? If you shoot somebody and you kill them, then the natural thing that people are going to think of is murder, right? And you would be right to think that way, right? If you shoot somebody and take their life with intent to kill, then that would be murder. But there are laws regarding self-defense, and we're talking about Florida, and they have what is called a stand your ground law when it comes to self-defense. All right. And so in Florida, their stand your ground law is basically a self-defense law that allows you to use deadly force in situations, right? So there's conditions on it. You can't just shoot somebody because you feel like it. But if you believe, and that belief is reasonable, that deadly force is necessary to protect yourself from imminent death or great bodily harm, right? So imminent death, great bodily harm, then you can use deadly force to defend yourself, right? So any situation, you're wherever you're at, and you feel like you're in danger of imminent death or great bodily harm, then you can use deadly force. And there's no duty to retreat. So that's where things get nuanced between the states, because in some states there is a duty to retreat, right? So if you can't just resort to deadly force when that threat presents itself, if you have the ability to retreat, then you have to retreat. And if you don't retreat, then you can no longer use this self-defense law, because now, whether it was an assault or if you killed the person, then you could be charged with murder. So that's where the duty to retreat becomes very important. But in Florida, they don't have a duty to retreat. So you don't have to try and run away, or you don't have to retreat before you can use deadly force, right? So as soon as that threat comes, you are allowed to use deadly force in Florida. But again, it's not just a license to a license to kill or a license, just an unlimited license to use deadly force. There has to be, an objectively reasonable belief that the use of force is necessary, and that's what's going to be analyzed, right? So you would have to ultimately testify or ultimately give your side of the statement in terms of what happened that made you believe that the use of force was necessary. And we're going to look at that, to see if it's objectively reasonable. If it's not reasonable, then you can get into, what's called imperfect self-defense, but that's kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about. But suffice it to say that the belief has to be reasonable, right? And so if you use excessive force, right, or if we find that you're acting with intent to harm somebody versus protect yourself, then you might still face criminal charges. So to be on the most safe side possible, it's making sure that, and these things happen in a split second, right? So people aren't thinking like a lawyer doing legal analysis in their head, but just understand that there has to be, an immediate, it has to be an immediate situation for you to do this. It can't be, where it's hours later, right? And you felt threatened at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you end up shooting somebody at 5 p.m. Like, no, that's too much time has passed at that point. It's got to be immediate in the moment. All right. So we just talked about the stand your ground law, and that's definitely going to be relevant, but even more relevant in this situation is what's called the castle doctrine. All right. The castle doctrine and this particular law is based on the idea that, our home is our castle, right? And we should feel safe in our homes, right? Nobody has a right to just come in our homes uninvited. And to the extent somebody does come in your home uninvited, then we should have the right to defend ourselves and defend our homes and defend our families without any fear whatsoever of legal repercussions on the back end, right? So you shouldn't either, number one, just have to sit there and allow somebody to break into your house or your apartment or whatever your home is, right? You shouldn't have to just sit there and allow somebody to break in and you can't do anything about it, right? You just got to sit there and watch them or call 911 and hope, the police come within an hour, right? By that time, you might have been assaulted, your property has been taken, they've ransacked your home and all that. So you shouldn't either have to do nothing, or you shouldn't have to be in a situation where you protect yourself, right? You protect yourself, protect your family, protect your home, and then be scared that you're going to be put in jail and charged with murder or assault because you were defending your home. That's what the castle doctrine is designed to address. And so if somebody unlawfully enters your home, right, and you reasonably believe, again, we deal with this reasonable belief because there's all kinds of, possibilities in this world. We have to be dealing within reasonableness, right? But if you reasonably believe that they intend to commit a felony, cause bodily harm, or use force against you or somebody else in the house, then you can use deadly force. And that's pretty much always going to be the situation, right? What's up, shorty? Appreciate you coming through as always, right? So again, if someone comes into your house unlawfully, uninvited, they break into your house, it's pretty much going to always be a reasonable belief that they intend to, commit a felony, or they intend to cause you bodily harm, or intend to exert force against you or someone in the building, right? Why else would they be coming in your house? Right. And so when we think about this situation and we're asking ourselves whether he should be arrested or whether he should be charged with a crime, this is what we're looking at. So it's not based on the police's feelings about the situation. It's not based on the DA's feelings. It's based about what the law says. It's based about the law says, and ultimately applying these facts, applying the law to these facts. Right, Mr. Casey. It is the legal defense in Latin of fuckus aroundus and find autus. Exactly. Brilliant lawyer there. Brilliant lawyer there. Yeah. So, he broke in. He broke in again. He broke in, assaulted this woman. So that's a burglary, right? If you enter someone's house and you have intent to commit a felony, that's a burglary. And then cops are called. Again, we don't know the extent of the injuries, but the report says that that he assaulted her, right? So the police are going to have already documented that. And then again, he goes for a second round. He breaks in, and this time it's very specific that he forced his way into the house or into the apartment. And so chances are he was gonna do it again, right? What would you think? What would you think he was going to do in that situation? Right? You've already made your way into a house uninvited, assaulted this woman. You leave, you force your way back in. What was going to be the plan, right? But I think an interesting question, and BJ says dad is in the clear, case closed. And I think that is probably true, but some interesting, questions that kind of come up is, how far would this guy need to have gone? Once he makes his way into the home, right? Assuming that he somehow busted through the front door. This is an apartment, so there's probably not going to be multiple ways to get into the apartment. But, would it be a situation, and I'm curious as to your thoughts, would it be a situation that as soon as he breaks the threshold, right? So as soon as he breaks the threshold, would Pops be justified, in putting that bullet in his chest? Or would he have to wait a little bit, right? Would this guy actually have to, make a move towards attacking the daughter or attacking the dad? That's an interesting issue, right? Because again, in terms of self-defense, generally speaking, you have to fear that there's, intent, there's an imminent death. There's a threat of imminent death or great bodily injury, right? But again, we're talking about a home and a guy is breaking in. We already know that an assault occurred, and we can assume, right? We can assume that he's there to cause further harm. But I think this ends up becoming a bigger issue when the father ends up reacting with deadly force, shooting this man. Right. But, the other side would say, well, what do we have to wait for him to do? Do we have to wait for him to pull out a gun and shoot both of them? Do we have to wait for him to pull out a knife and potentially either throw it at them or stab them? Why should we have to wait? This man has clearly communicated his intent the first time around when he came through. And so now he's back again. Why should there be any reason to wait? And that may be, that's an interesting question that, that the police and the DA would have to sort out. But I think, the moral of this story is don't break into people's homes, right? And I say that, without judging, because I've represented people who have burgled homes. And just like any other situation where I'm representing somebody who may have done something that society would completely look down upon, I'm not here to judge my clients. I don't judge any of my clients. Like I say, I don't care. But it's not my position to judge them. It is my position to protect and defend their constitutional rights and make sure that they're treated fairly within this system. Right. But I will say, it's not okay to break into people's houses. Right. Don't break into people's houses. And if you're here, if you can do me a favor, show me some love, hit the like button, hit the heart button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. That thing is constantly growing, at a nice steady pace. There's a lot of people becoming clients of the firm via YouTube, so that's a wonderful thing. So thanks so much for the support on that. So I think that this leads to a need to provide at least some sort of, tip for these fathers, because we have a situation, and this is a pretty unique set of circumstances where this daughter makes the call, father comes through, and this guy comes back. But what happens if the daughter makes the call? And we'll just add, some names to this. We'll say daughter's Rita, and Rita makes the call to dad and says, Dad, Mike just came through and hit me. Right? She's crying. She's pleading to dad through tears. Mike just came through and hit me. I need help. Right? And dad is pissed. Naturally, dad is pissed. His little girl has had hands put on her by this man. And Pops, he's livid. He's ready to do what he needs to do. And he tells Rita, I will kill that dude right now. He jumps in the car, hits the streets looking for Mike. Right? It's a small town, so he pretty easily finds Mike, immediately hops out of the car. Right? So now Pops and Mike are face to face at this point. And Pops tells her, hey, so you want to hit on someone, right? You like putting hands on folks. Well, let's do this. Right? So now it's man to man. And of course, Mike backs down. Mike doesn't want to fight. Mike was only putting hands on Rita, but Pops comes into the picture. But Pops has had enough, right? Pops is tired of hearing about Mike putting hands on Rita. He's heard time and time again. It started with arguments, started with microaggressions, and then he hit her the first time, and she forgave him because he gave her a hug, he gave her a kiss, he gave her some roses. She forgave him, took him back, and he hit her again, and he hit her again, and he hit her again. And Pops has just had enough. So Pops confronts Mike. Mike doesn't want in it. But Pops beats the brakes off of Mike. Right? And I know we got fathers in here. And I know there's some fathers that would do exactly what Pops did in this situation, right? You might not have let it got this far. You might not have let it go this far, right? Before you put hands on Mike. And when we have these assault type situations, there's always going to be a situation where someone overhears the commotion and they do what? They call the cops. They call the cops. And the cops respond to the scene. Felicia says he shouldn't have come back. He was coming back to do harm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what else would you come back for in that situation? BJ says if the guy didn't come back but went after him, he would be in the wrong, right? So that's almost like what we're talking about right here. Yeah, the dad went after him. So if Pops beats the brakes off of Mike, right? Someone hears the commotion, they call the cops, cops respond, and they see Pops standing over a bloody Mike, still talking trash, right? Now, is that a crime? Is that a crime? Right? We just saw a man shoot and kill the ex-boyfriend. And there's a chance that he won't even be arrested. There's a chance that he won't even be charged with a crime. But in this situation, Would Pops be good, or is he going to jail? All right. So we just talked about self-defense, and self-defense actually covers also there's something called defense of others. Right. So if you're in a situation where there is there's a threat to you and or the person next to you, somebody that you're with, there's a threat of imminent death or great bodily harm, then you are able to defend not only yourself and protect yourself, you're allowed to protect others as well. And Pops was protecting his daughter, right? So is he able to say that I was acting in self-defense or I was acting in defense of others? Well, the problem is you can only act in self-defense or defense of others if there's an imminent threat. An imminent threat, meaning it's about to happen right now, or you or the other person is about to be attacked right now. So in this situation, because Mike put hands on Pop's daughter, that's going to be a crime, right? Yes, Mike assaulted Pop's daughter, but the problem is that whole situation was already done. It wasn't in Pop's presence. And when Pops arrives on the scene, when Pops confronts Mike, there was no threat to Pops. There was no imminent threat to Pops. Now it'd be different if, Pops confronts Mike and says, why are you touching my daughter? Why are you putting hands on my daughter? That's not okay. And Mike responds, well, you can get it too, and makes a lunge towards him or makes some sort of threatening gesture towards Pops. Then yeah, it's on. Pops can definitely, put the beating on Mike, and that wouldn't be a crime because he's acting in self-defense. But in this situation, Mike posed no threat whatsoever to Pops. He, even said, I don't want any problems. I don't want this to happen. And so if Pops out of his anger beats down Mike, then that is a crime. All right. And so, in this situation, hey Queen, how you doing? In this situation, Pops is going to go to jail, and he's going to be charged with likely felony assault by means likely to produce great bodily injury. That is a serious offense. And we've talked in the past. Dean Price says Pops needs to hire Jamahl Kersey. Pops need a lawyer and shouldn't talk to anyone without one. Yes, absolutely. I agree. If you're in that situation, you just need to be quiet. Exercise your right to remain silent. You don't want to answer any questions. Do it respectfully. That's the thing. That brings up a good point in terms of, asserting your rights. I always tell people, don't let the police search your car. Don't let the police search your home. Don't let the police search your person unless they have a warrant. Don't give statements to the police. But that doesn't mean you have to be rude about it, right? You don't have to be disrespectful to the police, right? In fact, if you do, that's generally going to turn up a situation and add aggression to a situation that doesn't necessarily need to be there, right? So you can be assertive and assert your rights without being an asshole, right? You got to understand that. So yeah, if you're in a situation, police want to ask you questions, they're not there to be buddy with you. They are seeking information. They're seeking evidence in order to put you in jail or have you charged with a crime. There's no need for you to make their job any easier. That's what the Fifth Amendment protects us from self-incrimination, right? You see all these guys, who advocate for the Second Amendment, right? The right to bear arms, and you see them, rallying and protesting. That's the way you should feel about your Fifth Amendment right, the right to remain silent. right? Yes, I absolutely agree, BJ. Be tactful and ask nicely for a warrant, right? And just to add to that, if they don't have a warrant and they say that they're going to search anyway, just let them. Don't physically try and get in the way of a police officer doing their duty, because you're just going to make a situation worse. All right. But anyhow, we've talked in the past about disrespect and how feeling disrespectful, or how feeling disrespected and feeling justified in using violence. Because, make no mistake about it, there's a lot of you who can relate to Pops in this situation and feel like, hey, you know, Mike just put hands on my daughter. I see Mike in the streets. It's on, no questions asked. I'm gonna beat the brakes off him. But you have to understand that, those type of actions do have consequences, and you could be doing more harm than good, because there are ripple effects that come along with getting arrested and getting charged with a crime. If you've got a good job, they're probably going to be upset that you're getting arrested for assault, especially a felony assault. For some companies, if you are getting arrested for a felony assault, you might not even be able to work at that company anymore. If you end up getting convicted for assault, you might lose your job. Can you afford to lose your job because you lost your cool and felt like you were avenging your daughter? And again, this is not me judging. This is just me being a voice of reason in a situation, because this is a very, I can guarantee you, this very situation is probably happening right now somewhere. Someone is being assaulted, and someone's getting the call that their daughter is being assaulted, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about the situation. Right. And so we have to be mindful. And I can understand how, someone might feel like going through the legal route is not what they necessarily want to do. But, you know, taking the alternative route can be even more problematic, because if you have to go to jail, then you have to put up money for bail, then you have to put up money for a lawyer, then you still might risk getting convicted because you assaulted somebody, right? And we understand, why it happened. The DA and the judge will understand why you acted, but it's still, that's not a legal defense. It's not a legal justification. So it's definitely something that we got to be careful about. But I understand, definitely understand why somebody would do it. But yeah, this was the ultimate F around and find out situation. And I'm sure, or there may not be further details that come out, but it definitely is not surprising in the least that it's a story that comes out of Florida. Everything goes down in Florida, right? Whenever you see a crazy news headline, you can almost bet it's going to be out of Florida. But that's it. That's it. So it's almost 9 p.m. Got an early day in the morning. So I definitely want to thank you all for coming through and hanging out with me for a little bit. If you have topics that you'd like for me to address, I'd invite you to leave it in the comments. We'll probably get to it. I'm going to be going live a lot more. I'm trying to make this a habit, get my reps in, get better and better, deliver more and more value. And yeah, so like I said, if you got something out of this, please, show me that love, hit that like button. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I definitely, again, want to thank you for taking time to hang out with me. Sovereign citizen, man, you open up a whole nother can of worms, man. Yes, queen, thank you. You all have a good night. We will catch you on the next live stream. I appreciate you all. Be blessed.